These words are from the Reverend Kathleen McTeague. We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see their communion, the reflection of our own eyes. This house of laughter and silence, memory and hope, is hallowed by our presence together. Yesterday, my daughter asked me what I was going to talk about. I said, well, here, why don't you just read it? And I gave it to her. She got all done and she looked at me and she said, Dad, that's a little woo-woo. I said, it's okay, honey, they're Unitarians. So nature's ways. So how do you feel when your senses attune to the natural world? Whether it was a meander through the park, basking in the sun, plunging into a crystal clear lake, getting soaked by a summer rain, or feeling that Arctic wind chill on your skin, or even hauling your rear and gear up some gut-busting trail, I'm betting you felt more alive. It's not always pleasant out there, and if you don't know what you're doing, there are forces that can wound or even kill you. But for good or ill, nature is as real gets. You feel more alive when you're in contact with the natural world because it is alive, all of it. Today, many folks feel disconnected from nature and regard it largely as a contentious neighbor or a collection of soulless, mindless things, and biological automatons. For them, the earth is not their first mother, as Native Americans call her. Nonetheless, we are children of the earth, as the earth is of the sun, as the sun is of our solar system, which is a child to our galaxy, which itself is siblings to hundreds of billions of galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars. I'm starting to sound like Carl Sagan, right? Billions and billions. That's what we belong to, an awesome something born of one wondrous and mysterious beginning some 13.8 billion years ago, best as we can discern. The universe is mind-blowingly vast and complex, and within it resides a near infinity of objects and forces and events, just a riot of stuff moving and morphing and creating endlessly. Yet, in a way, we can sense but not quite comprehend all of this is connected, all of it and all of us. We are individual manifestations of the force that birthed the cosmos. As philosopher Alan Watts noted, we don't come into the world, we come out of it. And as cosmologists tell us, we are quite literally stardust. The same elemental force that brings us out of that primordial soup and courses through our bodies also gives rise to the bugs and bacteria, the rivers and clouds, volcanoes, planets, interstellar space, your cat or your dog, and everything else we can discern. Yet, this force also transcends our material nature, giving rise to the incredible mystery that we call consciousness. Now, somebody once asked me to define my religion, which is always a scary moment. I'm sure some of you had it. And the best I could come up with is to say I'm a panpsychic pagan, which means I believe that consciousness does not arise from matter, from brains and synapses, but rather everything arises from consciousness. To me, it is the ground of being. Everything else, including our physical selves and the seemingly material universe, constitute what we call epiphenomena, stuff that emerges from consciousness. If you pause now and tune in, you'll probably feel the force of nature moving inside of you, in the diffuse energy in your body, the beating of your heart, your breathing, the warmth of your skin. The force that innervates this is the same, whatever it is, that makes the entire cosmos alive. Not just things we arbitrarily decide are living, like you and birds and fungi, but everything. The sadly common vision of what constitutes life is narrowed by hubris, by thinking we are the sliced bread of creation, and all other creatures, entities, and processes are somehow lesser stuff. In our arrogance, we fail to recognize that all forms, animate and seemingly inanimate, are derived from the same elemental energy and sculpted from a common origin, what astrophysicists call the Big Bang. We can feel the afterglow of the cosmos' birth right inside our own sinew and flesh. All the elements in our bodies were spewed out into the universe eons ago by exploding stars, later to coalesce into our solar system, our planet, and us. Every part of our bodies is star stuff, and the matter in your nose may have come from a different star than that in your hand. And inside all this stuff is the capacity to evolve and morph into all manner of forms and transformative processes, including us. This cosmic agency is in everything. Some of us call it the life force, while others simply define it as energy, or if you're a Star Wars groupie, simply the Force. I believe it is consciousness. When we connect and interact with the life force as manifested in nature, it changes us. This assertion is supported by a growing body of behavioral science research from the field of eco-psychology. We know, for instance, that difficult conversations go better when they're conducted under trees. That moments of awe in response to nature have anti-inflammatory effects throughout the body. That going outside for as little as 5 minutes elevates mood by reducing stress hormones. That the more trees there are in a neighborhood, the lower the use of psychotropic medications like antidepressants and anxiolytics. We also know that a walk in the woods amps up natural killer cells that boost immunity. Children with ADHD who play outside show a marked decrease in their symptoms. Nature interaction combats hurry sickness and anger by slowing our perception of time. Gardening releases dopamine and serotonin, feel-good chemicals in the brain. Bird watching lessens depression and anxiety. Memory improves and stress hormones decrease for a week after one session of forest bathing. People heal faster when their hospital window faces trees or gardens. Having pets increases emotional intelligence and compassion in children. Those in grief find greater solace when they conduct rituals concretizing their loss in the natural world. I can go on. The list of behavioral science research supporting the healing effects of the natural world are just exploding. By intentionally cultivating a felt relationship with the natural world, one in which we experience nature as a thou rather than an it, we open ourselves to forces that afford us psychological, spiritual, and physical benefits. Such a relationship returns us to the wellspring of cosmic energy that resides in each of us and all around us. This bond returns us to our essential nature, consciousness. It is no accident that virtually all of humankind's greatest prophets, from Jesus to Buddha to Saint Bernadette to Muhammad to Saint Teresa of Avila to Abraham and countless others, had their souls carved by the hand of nature, by the desert, the mountaintop, the jungle, the sea, the garden. For many, their spiritual awakenings occurred while in communion with the natural world. What was it that touched them? Mystics from many traditions, including Christians, Hindus, Sufis, Buddhists, pagans, Unitarians, Taoists, to name a few, discovered the divine within nature's interconnected web of living entities and processes. They experienced what Stephen Graham meant when he said, "As you sit on the hillside, or lie prone under the trees of the forest, or sprawl wet-legged by a mountain stream, the great door that does not look like a door opens." Through these openings and passages awaiting us in the natural world, we can glimpse the divine force that gave birth to the creation. Now, almost everyone schooled in Judeo-Christian scripture has heard this declaration. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word was made flesh. While poetic, I believe this statement can be taken quite literally. It encompasses, in eloquence and brevity, a primary assertion that creation is consciousness that has become form, that has taken on material. It is divine and sacred, and we are in it, and it is in us. Now, in contemplating the mystery of the creation, we are a bit like a small child standing beneath a towering oak, holding an acorn in one hand and wondering how so great an entity could spring from such a tiny seed. We can pull the acorn apart and have, looking for the essential whatever it is that brought forth so much living substance, that transformed elemental energy into material form. Nevertheless, no matter how far down we drill seeking this essence, it eludes us. Consider the miracle of you. When egg and sperm merged, what power and wisdom propelled the you sitting there now from that minuscule genesis? To fathom how the Word was made flesh, we must peer back in time to the cataclysmic birth known as the Big Bang, when the stuff of the cosmos, the earth, and after many eons, ourselves came into being. As Carl Sagan so aptly observed, quote, "If you want to make apple pie from scratch, you must first create the universe." So let us briefly consider how apple pie and all the rest of it came to be. In seeking through the eye of astrophysics to understand how the Word did indeed manifest as flesh and stars and electrons and time, remember that science and spirituality often are cast as intellectual adversaries. From the National Academy of Sciences, there was a view articulated by Jacques Monod, a Nobel Prize-winning biologist who wrote, quote, "The ancient covenant between the Creator and its creation is in pieces. Man knows at last that he's alone in the universe's unfeeling immensity, out of which we emerged only by chance." This view reached a cynical crescendo when Steven Weinberg, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, declared, "The more the universe seems comprehensible, the more it also seems pointless." This kind of thinking emerges from minds that perceive only flesh and no word or consciousness within it. It is prevalent among those who have lost sight of the immanent spiritual essence of nature by focusing exclusively on the thingness of our universe. Such persons are plagued with what Martin Buber, a Hebrew theologian, termed I-it consciousness. At least regards nature, they have yet to achieve an I-thou awareness, the absence of which, according to Buber, renders them spiritually impoverished. As William Hoff, a chemist turned Unitarian minister, put it, quote, "What I conceive to be going on in an I-thou encounter is that the divine essence within both beings meets and greets itself. Two manifestations of the thou, God, Brahman, cosmic consciousness, come together. In the much more common I-it, however, the presence of the divine is unrecognized and ignored. A meeting of its has occurred." If the universe is an expression of the divine, if all things are manifestations of consciousness, then each of our interactions with nature is an opportunity to remember the essence of who we are, where we came from, and what we share with the rest of existence. The next time you look up at the night sky, remember that even our most powerful instruments, including the James Webb Telescope, have yet to find the edge of our universe, should one exist. Within what we can see, the current estimate of the number of galaxies out there runs as high as 2 trillion. And we don't really know that for certain. It's likely there are more. And how many stars? Some estimates run as high as 1 septillion. Have you ever heard that one before, septillion? That's 1 followed by 24 zeros. This sum is believed to exceed the total number of grains of sand on all of our planet's beaches. Currently, the majority of cosmologists believe that the Word became flesh in a sudden burst and rapid inflation of an infinitesimally tiny and dense point they refer to as a singularity. Current evidence suggests this singularity was unimaginably microscopic. In fact, if you took one proton, I'm going to get a little technical, hang on, a subatomic particle so small you could fit several hundred trillion in a period at the end of a sentence, and reduced it to around 1 billionth its normal size, and then packed it full of enough stuff to make our universe, you'd have a singularity. This concept ties our intellects in knots. Miracles do that. When we look at the natural world, we bear witness to a miracle far more fantastic than any burning bush, weeping icon, or bellowing beatific voice from the heavens. And it is within this very tangible and visible miracle that we can perceive the divinity we so often seek. In this sense, any act of wonder and awe in relation to nature is a form of meditation, and for some, of worship. One of the other mysteries embedded within the great story of the cosmos is the emergence of animate life itself. Life is something most of us oddly kind of take for granted, not just our own individual lives, but the entire process. Too many of us have developed a peculiar capacity to gaze at the myriad expressions of the life force, from a ladybug to a sequoia, with little more than a passing, that's interesting, or a momentary, wow, big tree. This nonchalance amplifies when we behold what we consider lifeless, such as stones and clouds, water, fire, wind, and the like. But as renowned physicist Fritjof, I always get this wrong, Fritjof Capra, wrote in the Tao of Physics, quote, macroscopically, the material objects around us seem passive and inert. But when we magnify such a dead piece of stone or metal, we see it is full of activity. Atoms consist of particles, and these particles are not made of any real material stuff. When we observe them, we never see any substance. What we observe are dynamic patterns continually changing into one another, a continuous dance of energy. Those who find communion with nature's way and experience a mystical bond with this dancing energy are spiritually transformed. Their perception is altered from it's just a tree or a stone to one of deep reverence for the creative force that enervates all matter, all energy. However, one need not be a mystic to recognize the miracle of life. Even though the secular lenses of science, even through them, the very existence of so-called animate entities is astounding. I once had a teacher say to me, do you want the ultimate Zen koan? Zen koans is something, when you think about it, kind of short circuits your thinking mind. I said, sure, what is it? And he goes, why is there anything? Try that one, not before you go to sleep tonight, but try it when you're awake. Where was I? To create even the most rudimentary of these life forms, such as bacteria, there must be a precise assemblage of proteins, the so-called building blocks of creatures such as we. In considering how uncommon that might be, I'm quoting author Bill Bryson from A Short History of Nearly Everything, which is a wonderful book I'd highly recommend. He said, for random events to produce even a single protein would seem a stunning improbability, like a whirlwind spinning through a junkyard and leaving behind a fully assembled jumbo jet. Studies of comets and asteroids demonstrate that the universe is replete with organic compounds. The junkyard, as Bryson calls it, has all the right stuff. For those who believe in nature's way, both the obviously animate and seemingly inanimate entities and processes around us demonstrate that the cosmos is not a mindless machine, but rather a living, conscious, sentient entity. Embracing nature's way does not offer an intellectual discovery of the meaning of existence. It offers an experiential immersion into the mystery of existence. As noted anthropologist Joseph Campbell stated, "I don't think people are seeking the meaning of life. I think they are seeking the experience of feeling fully alive." And it is within the experience of nature that we encounter this fully aliveness more than almost anywhere else. This is not an intellectual understanding, but based on face to wind, skin to water, eyes to cloud, fingers to soil. Think back. Perhaps you were next to a pond, a stream, or a waterfall on a warm, sunny day. Maybe the sun sparkled in endless reflections over the wavelets, or painted rainbows in the mists that rose like friendly apparitions from the cascading waters. Or was it a field of spring flowers, their colors resplendent, stretching across the landscape in a visual medley, never fully captured by a painting or a photograph? Did you stare in timeless rapture at the infinite variety of shapes and shades and hues, mesmerized by the splendor from which so many human artists have drawn their inspiration? Maybe you found yourself in a forest glen where beams of sunlight pierced the wooded canopy, pushing shafts of illumination through the shadowy breaches. The birds may have sung to you even while they were speaking with each other, and perhaps a squirrel pranced over the forest floor, not noticing your presence. Some of you may have had a butterfly land on your arm, your knee, or even the back of your hand. Remember holding your breath, hoping it would stay so your eyes could take in the unique tapestry of its painted wings? Did it not seem to you in those moments that a kindred spirit had come calling? Did you not feel, rather than think, that some other sentient being with which you were somehow connected had chosen to visit you? Or it may have been a time when you stood, small and awestruck, before an approaching squall line bearing down upon you like the wrath of God descending on the ancient Egyptians of Moses' day. Perhaps you remember when that first rush of cool air brushed over your brow as the distant thunder boomed ever closer, and the onrushing clouds, dark and fierce, swirled overhead. To those who embrace nature's way, these moments are the high mass of religious experience. They provide the rituals and hymns, the ceremonies and scripture that enlivens one's soul. They are the story, the Creator's story, unfolding, and our blessing is that we are living it. To quote Terry Tempest Williams, "What I know in my bones is that the world is holy. We are holy. All life is holy. Daily prayers are delivered on the lips of breaking waves, the whisperings of grasses, the shimmering of leaves." When I was 10 years old, I lived in Illinois, small town, had a lake in the backyard. Lucky me. And we had a family picnic one day, and sitting next to me at the picnic table was my godfather, Dennis Kavanaugh. And I was the only kid there, so I was pretty bored. And the adults were talking about the price of corn and the weather and whatnot. But anyway, my godfather turned to me and he said, Phil, he says, "Are you bored?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Me too, let's get out of here." So the two of us got up and we went out into the backyard, and he said, "Let's lay down in the grass and look at the clouds." So we did. We laid down on our backs. You know how it gets itchy after a while in the grass. And we looked up at the clouds. They were puffy cumulus clouds, all kinds of different shapes. And he said, "What do you see in those clouds, Phil?" So I looked, and I imagined all kinds of things. There's a race car over there, and that's a chocolate sundae, and that's a dragon. And each one I'd point out, he'd go, "Oh, yeah, I see that. Yeah, that's great." And then we kind of fell silent. And then this strange thought popped into my head. I don't even know where it came from. It didn't even sound like my voice. And the voice said, "Those are just clouds." And I felt this little kind of anxiety sort of rushed into me all of a sudden. I kept blinking and trying to bring the shapes back, but they wouldn't come. I just kept seeing clouds. I kept trying, but they wouldn't come. And then in one of those wonderful moments, those serendipitous moments that every once in a while the universe hands over to us, my godfather reached over, he put his hand on my arm, he said, "Phil, someday somebody will tell you those are just clouds, but don't you believe it? And if they ever tell you that now, don't you believe it?" Thank you. Benediction is from Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of all wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free.